8 reasons why most conspiracy theory is bullshit. If you've never read a ridiculous, overblown conspiracy theory, then you've never been on the internet, period. They were around before, of course, but like a septic tank, the internet seems to cause these stellar examples of bad thinking to breed and mutate with a rapidity that is shocking. Part of this seems to simply be the lack of critical thinking skills on the part of the involved parties. Information has a way of infecting anyone who has not properly inoculated themselves with knowledge and reason. If presented with something which seems logically sound, many will accept it based on a logical fallacy. Simply being aware of what kinds of logical fallacies exist can go a long way toward halting this sort of blind acceptance. But does that really explain it all? Why do so many intelligent and seemingly reasonable people insist upon conspiracy theories? Part of it has to do with the fact that human beings can convince themselves of almost anything, no matter how far-fetched, and once convinced, they tend to automatically reject evidence which refutes their beliefs, while at the same time owing more credit than is due to evidence which seems to support their beliefs. And before you write these people off as idiots, please understand that it's not their fault. Not entirely, anyway. It's just the way the human brain is wired. If you're a Westerner between the ages of 14 and 40, there's a good chance that you're dissatisfied with popular media's interpretation of reality and are actively seeking alternatives. As such, you may be exploring conspiracy theory yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. By all means, take advantage of the wealth of knowledge available to you. Now, more than any other time in the history of the world, human beings are able to learn absolutely everything they wish to know about any subject at almost no monetary cost. But with this wealth of information, there is a need for one to practice discernment. Nobody can tell you all the answers. You have to weigh the evidence and figure it out on your own. So while you're looking for answers, try to keep these things in mind. Part 1. It's a slippery slope. A prerequisite of most conspiracy theory is the suspension of disbelief. One is introduced to a concept which seems utterly implausible, and yet which seems to bear the fruit of truth. For example, the idea of the world's governments being run by an elite secret society seems like something out of bad science fiction, but one must consider certain realities. There was indeed a Bavarian Illuminati, founded on May 1st, 1776 by Adam Weishaupt. It was structured similarly to the Freemasons. It may have, in fact, been modeled after them. In any case, the two groups became intertwined. It is true that many world leaders have been members of the Freemasons. If one so wishes, they can draw any number of corollaries there, take quotes or statistics out of context, and draw the conclusion, which many have, that there is a complex, world-spanning system of total global dominance in play. And maybe that's not entirely untrue either. Maybe there are a few nuggets of truth hiding in such an unworkable mess. I don't know. I'm hardly an expert on the Illuminati or secret societies, but that's not really the point. The point, and the problem, is that once one starts shrugging off conventional wisdom in favor of entertaining fringe ideas, the tendency is often to see how far one can take it. A common phrase used to describe this searching activity is seeing how far down the rabbit hole goes, which is rather comical since those who use that terminology usually fail to recognize that the rabbit hole, and all after it, represented an illusionary landscape played out entirely within the mind of the protagonist in Lewis Carroll's classic Alice in Wonderland. The term, "we're all mad here," has never been more apropos. If you go looking through this stuff for long enough, you're bound to run into people who will tell you that the world governments are in collusion with extraterrestrials. These extraterrestrials use the bulk of humans as cattle, alternatively feeding off blood and bone, or off fear, depending on which camp you talk to. You will meet people who will tell you that the Queen of England, George Bush Jr. and Sr., Barack and Michelle Obama, and even the Pope are all secretly reptilians with false human bodies, handpicked and placed there by our alien overlords. They will tell you that the moon landing was staged. They will also tell you that there are secret bases on the dark side of the moon. How do you even argue with that? You don't. That sort of thing is the philosophical equivalent of color signaling patterns on poisonous or venomous animals. It means, stay away, you're not going to win this, no matter what you try. Only, instead of getting poisoned, you might actually find yourself believing this stuff, which might be worse.